Generally in Ramadan, the goal is to finish the Qur'an. And that's why if you look at the Salaf, rahimahumullah ta'ala, you see them finishing every day, one in a day, one in a night, every 3 days. You don't see them saying like, I took the whole Ramadan to finish one time so that I could have tadabbur. Is it best to be sat reading the Qur'an from the Mus'haf while the Imam is leading the people in Taraweeh? Anything which reaches the stomach, it breaks the fast, regardless of whether it is nourishment or not nourishment. So even if you were to swallow a stone, it would break your fast. The word fasting itself means al-imsak, holding back. So any time that a person is not holding back with a part of their body, so they're not holding back with their eyes, they're not holding back with their ears, they're not holding back with their tongue, they're not holding back with their hands and their feet, their limbs, then that person ultimately is in danger of losing either all of the reward or some of the reward of the fast.
إن العلماء لم يورثوا درهما ولا دينارا وإنما ورثوا العلم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this special Q&A that is connected to the upcoming month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it possible for us to reach Ramadan in good health and iman. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who stand in prayer and who fast the month of Ramadan, imanan wa ihtisaba, with iman and expectation of reward. And we ask Allah to make us from those who stand Laylatul Qadr with iman and expectation of reward. With that being said, I thought before we actually get into the questions, we should just remind ourselves a couple of really essential things. And I'm not going to make this a lecture, just a couple of points that I believe are essential before Ramadan starts. The first one is to remember the purpose of Ramadan. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. So the purpose of Ramadan is to achieve taqwa. It's not the purpose of Ramadan to be hungry. It's not the purpose of Ramadan to improve your health. It's not even really the purpose of Ramadan necessarily for you to be aware of those who are suffering in the world, even though that could definitely be a secondary purpose. But the primary purpose of Ramadan is to become a person of taqwa by doing what pleases Allah and keeping away from what angers Allah. And doing what pleases Allah and increasing in that is a key factor in Ramadan. And that's why in the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِذَا كَانَ أَوَّلُ لَيْلَةٍ مِنْ شَهْرِ رَمَضَانَ صُفِّدَتِ الشَّيَاطِينُ وَمَرَدَتُ الْجِنِّ وَغُلِّقَتْ أَبْوَابُ النَّارِ فَلَمْ يُفْتَحْ مِنْهَا بَابٌ وَفُتِحَتْ أَبْوَابُ الْجَنَّةِ فَلَمْ يُغْلَقْ مِنْهَا بَابٌ وَيُنَادِي مُنَادٍ يَا بَاغِيَ الْخَيْرِ أَقْبِلْ وَيَا بَاغِيَ الشَّرِّ أَقْصِرْ وَلِلَّهِ عُتَقَاءُ مِنَ النَّارِ وَذَلِكَ كُلَّ لَيْلَةٍ. On the first night of Ramadan, the shayateen and the obstinate jinn are shackled. The doors of Jahannam are closed, not a single door is open. The doors of Jannah are open and not a single door is closed. And an angel cries out, O doer of good, come forward, and O doer of evil, desist. So two things I wanted to just take from this hadith. There's so many, but I just want to take two. The first is that your approach to Ramadan should begin on the first night. It shouldn't be something that you're waiting for the 21st or 23rd, 27th. It should be something that you are starting on the very, very first night. The second thing which I think is really important to take from this hadith, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is to take from the hadith the fact that Ramadan is this opportunity to do good and to keep away from wrong. So you have a chance to do good. You have a chance to any single good deed that can be done. Ramadan is the time to do it. And any single sin or any bad habit that can be left, Ramadan is the time to leave it. And then I also want to sort of highlight before we start the importance of beginning prior to Ramadan with tawbah and istighfar, cleansing that heart, cleaning the heart, making it ready to accept the month of Ramadan, to welcome the month of Ramadan requires cleaning the heart. And it also requires you to start thinking now about the good deeds that you want to do. And maybe just to make a start. For example, you want to finish the Qur'an, let's say 3 times in Ramadan. but right now you're not reading anything. So at least start reading some pages every day, just so that when Ramadan comes, you're not going from 0 to 100, but you have some kind of gradual progress in there. Bi-iznillahi ta'ala. So these are just some like I said, it's not a lecture, but it's just a generic kind of piece of advice. And we can inshallah begin with the questions.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, how can someone with an ongoing illness who is not exempted from fasting but may need to break their fast at times avoid the two extremes of breaking it prematurely due to waswas and delaying it too much, causing real harm?
With regard to this question, in terms of a person who has an illness but doesn't want to break their fast prematurely, there are two things to bear in mind. First of all, not every type of sickness allows a person to break a fast. I think that's a big misconception people have, whereby in people's mind, and I don't think this is in the mind of the questioner because the question was worded in the right way, but I think in a lot of people's mind, they have the idea that any sickness allows you to break the fast. However, the sickness which allows you to break the fast has to be severe enough and strong enough that it's not something that would be normal or typical of a person who is breaking the fast. So, for example, a headache, some nausea, feeling tired, feeling dizzy. These are all things that are quite normal, especially in the first days of the fasting, and wouldn't allow or wouldn't be an allowance for a person to break the fast. However, with regard to a specific medical condition, my suggestion would be that you yourself have feedback from a medical professional as to where the limit lies with you. So, for example, if someone has, let's say, mild diabetes, and the doctor has told them that they are able to fast, I think that instead of making it guesswork, they should ask their doctor, what is the number or the blood reading, or what is the symptom at which I should say that this is now becoming to a stage where it's dangerous for me and I can't continue to fast. And I think that's better than a person leaving it to guesswork. Like, I just don't feel well, etc. I think it's far better that you have some kind of medical guidance as to what specifically you need to look out for as a reason to break the fast. So I think the question is difficult to answer very specifically because of the fact that every illness is different. But typically, a very common situation would be sort of in mild diabetes, maybe something like that, where the doctor has said it's the winter, you can fast, but ... You need to ask, if you're getting permission to fast, you need to ask, when is it that I shouldn't fast? Okay, when your blood glucose reaches this, or when you feel like this, or this symptom comes. So you have, medical guidelines. I think that's the best way to deal with it. Otherwise, if it comes from without that, if it's something that it's just down to you, I would simply say that if it's typical of what people would normally have during a fast, then you should not break your fast. Like, people would typically have a headache, people would typically have a bit of nausea, maybe feeling a little bit dizzy or a little bit tired, feeling a bit sick. That is all within the normal range of what people experience during fasting, and you don't break your fast for it. But if it goes beyond that, then you're permitted to break your fast. If you yourself then say that I don't want to break it because I want to carry on for a while, then that's a decision that you make for yourself, knowing your own medical condition. But it's not beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you to harm yourself. So you have to be careful about that. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, can you please recommend a dua book for someone to use in Ramadan if they want to make a lot of dua?
So this is an interesting one. I think what I like is the idea that you try to make the dua the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made. I think that's an excellent idea. But I'm not sure of a book which contains those kind of general du'as that is easy to recommend people. I think there's a lot of kind of fabricated stuff that I wouldn't involve myself with. Because obviously, if you look at books like Hisnul Muslim, Fortress of the Muslim, you see that they're more geared towards the daily adhkar, the things you need every day, like, when you go out of the house, when you come in the house, but not so much dua itself, like a book of du'as the Prophet ﷺ made. But there are some very good websites. There's an old one, which I used to be involved with, but it's still live as far as I know, and it's reliable, which is duas.com. I'm going to just check. Yeah, it's still live. It's very old, but it's still live. So duas.com. And it's completely reliable, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. All of the du'as there are authentic. So you could definitely have a look through those categories there as well, inshallah. There's quite a few good ones in Arabic as well. But I can't think of like a book in English or that's widely available that I could recommend you just to take. It's just a book of du'as. Not off the top of my head, and Allah knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, what is the best deed to do in Ramadan?
So I think one of the things we need to understand is that there is no specific best deed to do overall. Rather, there are best deeds to do depending on the time of the day, depending on the situation of the person. So if we just go through some of the best deeds to do, because we can't say that there is a best deed. If we look at some of the best deeds to do, so no doubt, of course, the fasting itself, you can't discount that. Especially, when you talk about the hadith that fasting, إِلَّا الصِّيَامُ إِلَّا الصَّوْمُ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. The statement in the hadith Qudusi that everything you're rewarded for and according to the rewards which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set out, from 10 to 700 times, except for fasting. It is for me and I reward it unlimited, whatever I want. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's unlimited reward for fasting, no doubt that is not the fasting which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ. Maybe a fasting person just gets hungry. So fasting with the eyes, fasting with the ears, fasting with the tongue, fasting with the hands and the feet, completely fasting from that which is forbidden and that which would decrease the reward of the fast, is no doubt from the best deeds of Ramadan. What about praying? Certainly praying your obligatory prayers, it comes first. But if we look beyond that, praying the Taraweeh, whoever stands with the Imam, man qama ma' imamihi hatta yansarif, kutiba lahu qiyamu layla. Or kama qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That whoever stands with the Imam until the Imam finishes, it's written for them that they prayed the whole night. So for this reason, I think that there's then that you look at the Qiyam, you then look at the charity. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ajwadu ma yakunu fi Ramadan. The most generous that he was in Ramadan, and particularly the iftar, feeding the poor person. To the point where some of the scholars, they said regarding Ramadan, Ramadan is nothing other than إطعام الطعام وقراءة القرآن. Ramadan is nothing other than feeding people food and reading the Qur'an, yani the optional deeds. So from the best of them is to feed the person. And there are multiple narrations. Of course, there is the narration that you will have the reward of their fast without their fast being decreased in anything. But also there is a narration outside of the Kutub al-Sittah, which indicates that as long as that person has food in their veins from you, from what you provided them with, you'll receive the reward for all the deeds they do because of it, like the prayer and the dua and the reading of the Qur'an, as long as the food that you've given them is they're still being nourished from it. So there is a huge reward in the iftar, in charity in general. If we look at the last 10 days, for example, i'tikaf, even though i'tikaf is not limited to the last 10 days, but i'tikaf, isolating yourself in the masjid. If you look at dua, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. And this came in the middle of the ayat regarding Ramadan, shows that dua is from the most important of the actions you can do in the month of Ramadan. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah." Dua is the essence, the core of what worship is. So I think out of all of that, and there are many more, it's not that one of them is the best, but that at each time in the day, there is a best one. There is a best one. So would you say that it's best, even though we talked about the virtue of reading the Qur'an, is it best to be sat reading the Qur'an from the Mus'haf while the Imam is leading the people in Taraweeh? We would say no, because of the hadith of starting with the Imam and finishing with the Imam. So you start with the Imam until the Imam finishes. It's written for you, you prayed the whole night. So now, should you be reading the Qur'an from the Mus'haf, sitting down, just reading, even though this is one of the main actions in Ramadan, while the Imam is leading the people in Taraweeh? No, you should be with the Imam. That's the best thing to do at that time. For example, people say, should you be giving charity, giving charity on Laylatul Qadr? The answer is no. Not to say that it's wrong to give charity. Of course, you can give charity just generally. But should you be busying yourself out on the streets giving charity when the people are in the masjid praying? No, you should select instead to give that charity, example, after Asr, so that you can be in the masjid, looking for Laylatul Qadr. So there's a best deed to do in each particular situation during the month. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, is it permissible to use an energy or caffeine patch when fasting?
With regard to what breaks the fast, in terms of the issue of food and drink, there's a couple of things that we need to understand. So the first thing that we need to understand is the types of food and what is similar to food. The types of food and what is similar to food. So the first thing is that anything which reaches the stomach, it breaks the fast, regardless of whether it is nourishment or not nourishment, according to the view of the majority. So even if you were to swallow a stone, it would break your fast. So this is what goes into the stomach. Some of the ulama said there's a view with regard to what goes in and comes out, like a tube. If you had a medical tube inserted and it came out, there's a view that that doesn't break the fast. But generally speaking, they said that if you were stabbed in the stomach and the head of the spear broke, you would break your fast. You would have broken your fast, even though you didn't eat anything. Like in what reaches the stomach, whether it is food or not, breaks the fast. And that's why you can't dry swallow tablets and things like that. Even if you did it dry, if it reaches the stomach, it breaks the fast. Likewise, that which is similar to food and drink that doesn't reach the stomach, but it's given another way. So for example, it can be given through injections or patches. If it is the same as food and drink, then the issue of that is that it invalidates the fast. It invalidates the fast. But then the question comes about these patches. So, what it seems, with regard to them, is if they're from those types of patches which give the effect of food and drink, then it's not permissible to use them. If it's from the things which give the effect of food and drink, it's not permissible, and it's not permissible to use them. But if it's from the things which don't give the effect of food and drink, like a nicotine patch to help you stop smoking, for example, what goes through the body and the skin and so on, medical patches and so on, they don't, here, the Islamic Fiqh Council said doesn't break the fast. And I would be very careful of putting anything into your veins or whatever it might be that gives the same effect as food and drink. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. No doubt creams, ointments don't break the fast. Typically skin patches, but I worry when someone says an energy patch, that makes me scared because it makes me feel like it might be something which it has the effect of food and drink. Like in nicotine patches and creams and the things you put on your skin typically don't break the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Just 20 seconds until your video continues. That's enough time to ask yourself, are you investing in your growth? AMAU Academy gives you structured Islamic studies, Arabic, and self-development courses, all at your own pace. Don't miss out. Begin your journey today at amauacademy.com.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, if someone struggles to do dhikr and wants to increase, especially in Ramadan, is it allowed to set a goal like, I will say this specific dhikr 500 times and count it if it works for them?
I don't think that it's a good idea to put a number on something that the Sharia didn't put a number on. I think that it's better for you to simply say that I will say it a lot. So even if you're saying I want to get 500 times, no problem. But why limit it to exactly 500? Like, why not say I want to get over 500 times? So like 500, 510, 512, like up, down, 490. Like don't put a specific number on it. If you want to do it a lot, like you say, like I really want to say this like a lot, and it didn't come with a specific number in the Sharia, so just make it a goal to say it a lot rather than putting that specific number on there. So you're going to say like, around 500 times, could be 500, 600, 550, 450, 490, whatever it turns up at. But I'm aiming something like that. Then I hope that is permissible, inshallah. But I don't like the idea of a person hitting a precise number on a dhikr that there isn't a number given for it in the Sharia. And Allah knows best.
Ahsanallahu ilaykum, Ustad. Ustad, if one drinks or eats forgetfully, is it correct that they do not have to redo the fast?
Yes, that's true. The hadith came with that regard, that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that fed him and gave him drink. So the person does not have to. Now, the first condition of that is that it should be truly forgetful. It shouldn't be a case where a person was kind of like they had it in their mind, but they just did it anyway. It has to be something that's truly forgetful. And as soon as the person remembers, then they have to stop and they have to empty what is in there, what is in their mouth. They can't, just finish the bowl because they forgot when they started it. So they do have to empty what is in their mouth, and they have to wash out their mouth, for example. But yes, the person is not to blame for what they ate when they didn't remember. And Allah knows best.
Ahsanallahu ilaykum, Ustad. Ustad, what are some of the ways that people break their fast without knowing? Most people do it, but they don't realize.
I think there's two things that you have to bear in mind: breaking the fast and losing the reward of the fast. So, first of all, when it comes to breaking the fast, I think that people are very familiar or generally familiar about what breaks the fast in Ramadan. And I don't think there's a lot of confusion. Wallahu a'lam. Personally, I think people are quite familiar with what breaks the fast. But I do think that where people go wrong is with regard to the things that reduce the reward. Now, there is one thing that some of the scholars hold breaks the fast, and not all of them do. I personally lean to the fact that it doesn't break the fast, but it's better to keep away from it, and that is bukhur, and that which is similar to it. So incense and thick, that thick kind of smoke which reaches into the stomach. I think that this it is a lot safer that a person avoids it, even though I don't believe the stronger view is that it doesn't. I think the stronger view is it doesn't break the fast, but the fact that it is a view that it breaks the fast, it should be avoided in Ramadan during the day. The issue of bukhur, incense, and the likes of it. That is the probably the one that I would say maybe people don't know about. And even though I don't know whether it's the strongest view, I think it's probably not the strongest view. But just out of the fact that it is a view is something to bear in mind. Also, like cupping also is another one which people, again, there's a difference of opinion regarding it. But the safer option is to leave it in Ramadan. There's no harm in giving a small amount of blood, but you shouldn't be giving like a large amount of blood or being cupped during Ramadan to be safe, because of the fact that it's a matter of difference of opinion, but it's the fact that there is an opinion there, you shouldn't be putting your fast at risk. With regard to the things that reduce the reward, there are a lot of things. So everything that you're doing that goes against the concept of fasting reduces the reward. So ultimately, when you're fasting, the word fasting itself means al-imsak, holding back. So any time that a person is not holding back with a part of their body, so they're not holding back with their eyes, they're not holding back with their ears, they're not holding back with their tongue, they're not holding back with their hands and their feet, their limbs, then that person ultimately is in danger of losing either all of the reward or some of the reward of the fast. And that's why a person might fast and get nothing but hunger. لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ. Person might get nothing except hunger from the fast. So I think that's something to consider, which a lot of people don't think about. So a lot of people, for example, lying, backbiting, and so on. If you're not going to leave that, then ultimately you risk the fact that you might not get any reward for your fast at all. And Allah knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, if an elderly person cannot fast, can they give fidyah to their son who doesn't have much and doesn't work? Or does it have to be outside of the family?
In general, it shouldn't be someone that you normally spend upon, wallahu a'lam. Generally speaking, the issue of these penalties and such, penalties and obligatory forms of charity and so on, I would suggest not giving it to someone that is someone you're obliged to spend upon, like your direct descendants or ascendants. Like, and if it's given to another family member, then obviously no harm in it, inshallah. Like, and it should be somebody that who is the fidyah given to. It's not just given to somebody who doesn't have much or doesn't work. The fidyah is given as food to someone that doesn't have it. So like, usually what people are confusing here is that they confuse what is to be given as money and what is to be given as food. So a lot of people give zakah as, for example, food or clothing, when zakah has to be given in money. Zakatul mal, I mean. And zakatul fitr is the opposite. Zakatul fitr has to be given in food. Zakatul fitr has to be given in food. If it's given in money, the money should be, the charity or the organization should purchase the food with the money that's given, because it's given in food. So you have to be careful about the difference between what is given in money and what is given in food. So someone who's not working, for example, and doesn't have much, that person, if they still have qut al-yawm, they have enough food for the day, and it's different from the one that doesn't have any food. But generally speaking, these penalties shouldn't be given to someone that you're obliged to spend upon. Rather, it should be given to someone that you're not obliged to spend upon, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, is it sunnah to have dates for suhoor, or is that restricted to iftar only?
Wallahi, what I remember it being mentioned is for both, but I don't recall specifically. Allahu a'lam, I don't recall. I would have said to you it's for both, but I don't recall, like, I can't recall a specific evidence for it that I could quote to you. Now, here there's an exception I wanted to mention in the previous question, which came to my mind, which is that if that son doesn't have enough food and there's no one else to spend upon him other than that mother, then yes, she can give the fidyah in terms of food. If he's being spent upon, then no. But if there was no one to spend upon, then yes, she could give the fidyah if nobody else was there and they didn't have any food. However, to understand the type of person that it's given to, the person who doesn't have enough to live on, and they're given like half a sa' of the local staple food. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan, Ustad. Ustad, many people are busy working during Ramadan, and some people are students and they have to prepare for exams. How can they balance between worship and doing their work and studies?
So I think the first thing is that we need to not be caught up in the cycle of this world, which is very easy to get caught up in. The reality is you never ever get free. These people, they take you for your whole life, from 5 years old until 25 years old, and then the world of work takes you until you're 65 or 75 years old, and they never give you time off. So you never have free time. You always have a big project, or you always have exams, or you always have. And so I think that you should be careful not to get sucked in by that, to the extent where you reach a place where you are never ever able to dedicate yourself to worship. And sometimes there's just, the barakah of just dedicating yourself to worship. And the exams I've been studying the whole year. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it will be fine. I do understand there's a culture, certainly when it comes close to exam time, a person needs to study hard. I understand that. In which case I would say, don't remove the good deeds from Ramadan. Just find an acceptable level. So for example, if normally you would finish the Qur'an every week or every 10 days in Ramadan, instead of doing it every 10 days in Ramadan, why don't you try to do it like, for example, one time the whole Ramadan? Like finish the Qur'an one time the whole Ramadan because of your exams. So you're not getting rid of it, you're just decreasing it a little bit. But I do think you have to be careful that for a lot of us, there's always exams, or there's always a project deadline, or there's always something urgent at work. And I think you have to learn to put that on hold for the sake of your religion.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, I clean my heart through fasting. I cleanse my heart through fasting, but hidden addictions and sin have afflicted me again. How can I change myself through Ramadan?
So when it comes to addiction to sin is something which requires a multifaceted approach. I think one thing Ramadan gives you is the fact that the shaitan is shackled. It reduces the influence of the shaitan upon you. The fact that the doors of Jannah are open and the doors of Jahannam are closed give you that opportunity to leave that habit. But one of the most important things is that your intention is to leave it beyond Ramadan. And I think it's also very important to use Ramadan to make dua, to ask Allah to make it easy for you to leave those things that you are addicted to. I also think it's very important that a person analyzes why they fall into a certain sin. I mean, why is it that the person falls into a certain sin? I think once a person knows why, they can try to stop it. I think it's very hard when a person doesn't look at why they're doing something. It's very easy for them to fall into it again and again. So they have to look at their companions, they have to look at the environment, they have to look at what is the things that lead up to that feeling or that sin. I think it's very, very important. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, if someone's parent has passed away with obligatory fasts that they still have to make up, am I required to fast on their behalf?
The first thing we have to understand is whether their fasts are still obligatory on their account or not. I think that is an area where, again, people get very confused. So if a person died, for example, in the middle of Ramadan, then the person is not obliged to make up, for example, the days that were remaining of the month of Ramadan. For example, if a person was sick with an illness that there was no hope for a cure, then that person just needed to feed one poor person for each day. If a person became sick and they died during that sickness, they don't have to make up any of the fasts for the days that they were sick, because the time for making them didn't come. So as an example, let's just say somebody became sick in Sha'ban and they were sick through the month of Ramadan, they didn't fast and they died. So that person doesn't have to make up those days from Ramadan at all, because then they never got to the stage where they could have made them up. And they never got to the stage where they could have made them up. So the making them up didn't ever happen to them. So I think a lot of mistakes people make is the issue of putting fasts on the deceased that are not theirs to fast in the first place. That's the first thing. Secondly, if there are fasts, that they, for example, they were sick in Ramadan and they died midway through the year. So for sure that person could have made up the fasts but didn't. So here it's recommended for their heirs, those who inherit from them, to fast on their behalf, but it's not obligatory for them to do so. And it's recommended for the the heirs or those who inherit to make it up for them. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, is it better to focus on aiming to finish the Qur'an without translations and reflection, or read less and reflect more?
Generally in Ramadan, the goal is to finish the Qur'an more than it is to go slowly. And that's why if you look at the Salaf, rahimahumullah ta'ala, you don't see, for example, them saying, I only finished the Qur'an once with tadabbur. You see them finishing every day, one in a day, one in a night, every 3 days. You don't see them saying like, I took the whole Ramadan to finish one time so that I could have tadabbur. So I think that if you look at the understanding of the Salaf, it is tilawatul Qur'an. It's reciting the Qur'an. Now, I'm not going to say that doesn't involve tadabbur or it doesn't involve tafsir. It does, no doubt. But I don't think that overly like slowing right down so you can ponder deeply, I don't think that that is the way that the Salaf approach reciting the Qur'an in Ramadan. Rather, they approached it as a time to make tilawah, to finish as much recitation as possible. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. I do think, though, for those who don't understand Arabic at all, it is helpful to at least once in Ramadan finish at least the translation of the Qur'an in the English language. We did it one time with AMAU as a YouTube video. And I would recommend something like that. If you don't understand, even generally, like you're reading the Qur'an, you don't understand at all, I think that having, like as you're reading, just having a glance at the English could be helpful, inshallah ta'ala.
Jazakallahu khairan, Ustad. Ustad, if a woman is in her menstrual cycle, how long should she wait to begin fasting again if she is unsure whether or not her period has ended?
So this issue of being unsure whether the period has ended or not is definitely something which causes a lot of women a great deal of problems. And one thing we should be really clear about is if that's happening to you, it is obligatory on you to learn the fiqh of the menstruation and learn it properly to the extent that you know when it has started and stopped. Because this is a matter now which is an essential matter of your religion. With regard to the end of the menstrual cycle, there are two situations. One is that a woman has a clear sign that her menses has ended. And this is often called a show. It could be like a discharge of some sort, like a white discharge, where she knows that when this discharge comes, her menses has ended. This one is easy. The second one is the one where the woman she doesn't know. And here, what she has to do is she has to examine herself on a regular basis. And when she sees that there is no more menses, then at that point, she is now able to fast. Now, bear in mind, it's not a condition for her to make ghusl before the fasting starts. She can start fasting even if she hasn't yet made ghusl for it. It's not a condition for her to have made ghusl. The ghusl obviously is a condition for the prayer, but it's not a condition for her to fast. So she can, for example, if she believes that she finished at a certain time, then she can start her fast as long as this was before the adhan of Fajr. So she had time to make the intention. So again, it's difficult to explain or describe how she would know, but I think that it's important for her to get a good understanding of that through specific, for example, classes or lectures or literature, so that she understands exactly when that limit is. I'm not convinced that there's a fixed time. Like, I'm not convinced you can say like 1 day or 2 hours or 4 hours. But I think that she herself should know what is normal for her. So normally, if the blood completely ceases and she has checked with a tissue or similar and she has no spotting of any sort, and then again she waits some time, which is normal for her, and she checks again and she has no spotting or marks of any sort, then I think at that point she considers that she believes based on herself and what she knows of herself that she's finished, and then she can begin the fast as long as she has time to make the intention before the adhan of Fajr begins. Other than that, she may make a mistake sometimes, it could be, in which case she realizes that she fasted and she should have broken her fast. And for example, she finds a couple of hours later that she made a mistake. But typically, there should be a routine that she has by which she knows herself. I'm not convinced that I know, to my knowledge, of any specific time limit that you can put for every woman and say that it is 4 hours, or that it is 1 hour, or that it is like half a day, or that it is from one prayer to another. But she should know herself and what is typical for her. And Allah Azza wa Jal knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, does having a wet dream break a person's fast?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't break a person's fast. If it's not in a person's control. What breaks a person's fast is what is in their control. What is in their control. And that is intimacy with regard to, the spouse, as well as any what they call the secret habit. And this is what is in a person's ability to control. And this, if it, for example, ends in ejaculation, or if there is intimacy between the spouses to the level which breaks the fast, then this is what is in a person's control. But what happens when a person is asleep comes under the hadith rufi' al-qalam an thalath. 3 people have no pen rights for them. And that includes an-na'im hatta yastayqiz, the sleeping person until they wake up.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, some people live 15 to 20 minutes away from the masjid. Should they attend the 5 prayers in the masjid and Taraweeh prayer as well?
So when it comes to living away from the masjid, there are 2 things that you should do. The first one is that you should pray in the jama'ah, and you should not leave praying in the jama'ah. Because Allah didn't, subhanahu wa ta'ala, didn't leave the command to pray in the jama'ah, even at a time of war. Even when the enemy is shooting bullets at you or missiles at you, you still have to pray in jama'ah. So a person shouldn't leave praying in the jama'ah because of the fact that they are far from the masjid. Rather, let them make a jama'ah with their neighbors, with the people close to them. Bi-iznillahi ta'ala. That's the first thing. The second thing they should do is to try to attend the masjid as much as possible. Because just because a person is too far to be obliged to attend it in all 5 prayers doesn't stop them from attending it as much as possible. And especially in Ramadan and the Taraweeh. Let a person try their very best. I remember I, for a long time, lived around, when I was living in the UK, I lived around 15 minutes away from the masjid, approximately. And we used to go for all 5 prayers every day. And occasionally we would miss. Sometimes you have to pray jama'ah at home or something like that. But generally speaking, we make most of them. So I think it's all down to the motivation. It's all down to, how much you want to do it. But I think that you should definitely be aiming to go as much as possible, because praying in the masjid is the default, as much as possible. And other than that, if you do miss it from time to time or from prayer to prayer, certain prayers, maybe it's work time, then do try to pray in the jama'ah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, from the signs of maturity, which is a condition for fasting to be obligatory, is menstruation in women. If menstruation has not yet begun, but the pubic hair has changed and it has become from soft to coarse, does this mean that maturity has been reached and it becomes obligatory for the woman to fast?
Yes, because the rules of the signs of puberty are not that it doesn't have to be all of them. It can be one of them. It can be one of them. It doesn't have to be all of them. It doesn't have to be all. It can be even just one of them. So, for example, that coarse hair around the private parts is enough to prove adulthood, even if the menses hasn't started for that girl. And Allah knows best.
Ustad, what is better, to recite the Qur'an with the necessary rules instead of proper tajweed, like doing proper ikhfa, ghunna, etc., so that we can do more khatms? Is this better?
Qur'an should be read haqqa tilawati, as it deserves to be read. And even though no doubt the tafsir of the ayah, haqqa tilawati, is to act upon it. But in general, the wording encompasses reading the Qur'an properly. So you shouldn't be reading the Qur'an in such a way that you lose the right of the letters and the words. But the scholars of the Qur'an, they have different speeds at which a person can recite the Qur'an. And this is well known in the science of the recitation of the Qur'an, that there are different speeds at which you can read. And those speeds have a purpose. So at each speed, you should never be at a stage where you lose the meaning of the words, and you should never be at a stage where the words become mixed up, or they become blurred, or they become incoherent. But it is permissible to drop certain rules or to lighten certain rules of the tajweed in order to be able to read more. Now, the question is this better or not? And the answer to that depends on what the purpose is. So reading quickly can be beneficial in the sense of a person revising what they know and so on. But I think that, would I recommend a person to read really quickly just to finish? I think when you read at a certain speed, you read at a speed where you actually lose the ability to process what you're reading. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ disliked reading the Qur'an in less than 3 days. Even though in Ramadan, many scholars held as an exception, and they held that you can read the Qur'an every day. But I think that when you read the Qur'an very, very quickly, it can be very good for memorization and strengthening it. But you definitely lose a sense of what you're reading without a shadow of a doubt. And so I would suggest that a moderate reading with enough tajweed that you can still have a connection to what you're reading, that would be the minimum standard. And if a person reads with beautiful, slow recitation of the Qur'an, they get the reward for that, bi'iznillahi ta'ala.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, does the woman have to give Fidyah if they fail to complete their missed fasts until the next Ramadan?
No, I don't believe so. If the case is that she has a reason for not doing so. If she has a reason for not doing so. So for example, it could be that, for example, she was pregnant, then she was breastfeeding, and if these kind of things which happen again and again, for example, or she was sick. So then in that case, she has to make it up as soon as she becomes better, or the excuse for fasting is removed from her. But no doubt for her to finish them within the year, that is what should be done where possible. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Should we seek knowledge in the month of Ramadan?
Okay. So seeking knowledge is of two types. Seeking knowledge of the essential things which you have to have in order to get through your day. And that must be done in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. It's very important. So, for example, the knowledge of the fasting or what breaks it, the knowledge of the good deeds to do in Ramadan, the knowledge of what reduces the reward of the fast, the knowledge of how to get rid of the sins and purify the heart. And this is knowledge that you need every day, and you can't escape that needing that knowledge. So this is obligatory for Ramadan, as it is obligatory for all of the other days of the year. Whatever you need, obviously in Ramadan that includes fasting, but whatever it is that you need to be able to successfully navigate the things that are happening to you on that day, that knowledge is an obligation immediately at any time. The second type of knowledge is the type of knowledge which is voluntary and which is additional to that necessary daily knowledge. In this case, it would be better if a person is able to pause that program for the month of Ramadan to focus on the recitation of the Qur'an and understanding it. And if a person adapts it to, for example, because they don't want to lose the habit, so they switch it to like not just reciting the Qur'an, but also a bit of tafsir and tadabbur and what have you, then there's no harm in that, inshallah. But I would suggest that it would be better for a person to leave or to pause the additional forms of seeking knowledge in order to increase in the recitation of the Qur'an and the prayer and the other things that we're being told to do in the month of Ramadan, and Allah knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan, Ustad. Ustad, do eye drops break the fast?
There's a difference of opinion regarding it. Like in the view that seems to be the more correct view is that it doesn't break the fast, but a person must be careful. What a person must try not to do is try not to let it go into the throat. Even though Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen said that it doesn't break the fast, even if you can taste it in your throat. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Like, a person should try to avoid that, tasting in the throat. Like in the eye drops doesn't break the fast. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Again, if you can avoid it, if you don't need it, then don't take it. But if you do need it, then it doesn't break the fast, inshallah ta'ala. Likewise, eardrops are the same. Allah knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, what's better for the woman, to pray Qiyam at home or in the Masjid?
So the situation with regard to the woman is divided into two situations. If she's able to recite the Qur'an well and fluently, and she's able to stand in prayer for a long time, it's better for her to pray at home, no doubt. وَبُيُوتُهُنَّ خَيْرٌ لَهُنَّ. Their houses are better for them. However, if it's the case that she is not able to stand for a long time, she has limited Qur'an, she would struggle to pray a long prayer, then if she can safely go to the masjid and with the permission of her guardian, then yes, it's better for her to go to the masjid. Because what is intended, what is the purpose of the standing in prayer is the long standing, and to stand for as long as possible. So if she's not able to stand for a long time at home because she only knows qisar, as-suwar, the small surahs maybe, or she would struggle to stand for a long time, then it would be better for her to go to the masjid, providing that it's safe to do so and she has the permission of a guardian and it doesn't harm her responsibilities within the home, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek. Ustad, the woman who is heavily pregnant, does she have to make up her fasts, or does she feed people and not fast?
So we have to understand that the difference between making up the fasts and paying to feed a poor person typically is the difference between the one that is expected to recover or not expected to recover. So what we can see from a woman who is pregnant is clearly she's expected to recover. She's going to deliver the baby, bi'iznillahi ta'ala, and then she'll be fine and she'll be able to fast. She might be breastfeeding the baby, in which case she might feel reluctant to fast, but there's no health reason that she can't fast either this year or the next year or the following year. So for that reason, this is a case where she would simply make up the fasts. However, there is a view which I think is safer. Again, I'm not sure about stronger, but it's definitely safer. And that is that if the woman, the reason for her not fasting is not her own sickness, but a fear for the baby, then she should not only just make up the fasts herself, but also pay to feed a poor person for each day of fasting she missed. So she should join between the fidyah and between making up the fasts. If her only reason is fear for the baby, she says, I'm fine, I'm healthy, I don't feel sick, I can fast, but I don't fast because of the baby, then it's safer for her to do a fidyah as well as to feed a poor person, as well as to make up her fast as well. There is a situation with regard to misfast where she could reach a large number of days. And if, for example, there are some situation where, some women, for example, are in a constant state of pregnancy and breastfeeding and they feel that they cannot fast during that time, and it reaches to the extent where she has 10 years of fasting to make up, then here definitely, there are from the people of knowledge those who say that she just has to pay to feed a poor person because it became more than she's able to do. But certainly it is certainly possible to make up a few years of fasting without a shadow of a doubt. It is possible. And from the evidence for that is from the penalties of intimacy in Ramadan is to fast 60 consecutive days. And therefore fasting 60 consecutive days is within the ability of a person. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. So for this reason, and it is possible for a person to fast a whole month or 2 months of making up fasts from previous years. But it could reach a level, and it's certainly possible to reach a level where, she says like 10 years of fasting. Yeah, it's possible to reach a level where she would not be able to make it up. But typically, she's expected to be able to make it up, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad.
Feekum barakallah.
Ustad, does vomiting invalidate the fast?
If it's deliberate, yes, it invalidates the fast. If it's not deliberate, then it doesn't invalidate the fast. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Barakallahu feek. Ustad, does donating blood for emergency break the fast?
So this is a matter which the scholars differed about. The safer, version is that it shouldn't be done during Ramadan to be safe. And there is definitely a difference of opinion about whether that would break the fast or not. But again, emergency, typically it's not the case that usually your blood is needed as an emergency in that moment. I don't see many examples like that. Usually the hospital has a bank of blood ready, which people have given. So I don't see there to be a need for you to donate blood in the daytime in Ramadan. You could do it in the nighttime. But if someone says an emergency happened to the point where the doctor said you need to donate blood right now, هذا بعيد يعني. That's very unusual and very unlikely to happen, because typically the hospital has a large supply of blood that they have ready for a person. So I don't really see a situation where someone is told by the hospital, you need to donate blood now. And if they do, there's a difference of opinion as to whether that breaks the fast or not. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Jazakallahu khairan, Ustad. Ustad, can we take one more question?
Yes, absolutely, inshallah.
Barakallahu feek, Ustad. Ustad, if a woman's menstruation starts during the fast, does she eat and drink straight away, or does she have to wait until Maghrib?
So we need to understand that menstruation immediately breaks the fast. Even if it is 1 second before the adhan of Maghrib, it breaks the fast. So when it breaks the fast completely. So she's not allowed to continue her fast at all. However, it may be that she can eat and maybe she doesn't have something available. She can, for example, she might be driving in the car. She doesn't have an option she doesn't have water to break her fast with, but she needs to understand from the moment the menses started, her fast is broken. And then it's for her to eat or drink something as soon as that becomes available to her. And Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best.
Naam, Ustad. We will end here, inshallah.
Jazakum Allahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us this month of Ramadan. We ask Allah to allow us to reach it in safety and iman. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who fast and stand Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaba. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who stand Laylatul Qadri imanan wa ihtisaba. And that is what Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention. Allah knows best. Wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.